is the GOAT list. Who is your GOAT? Who is your top 5 greatest of all time?
Who do you think is the greatest UFC fighter of all time?
John Jones.
And there's some guys on the GOAT list that people actually think that do not deserve to be on the GOAT list. And I think right now, the guy people mostly disagree on being on the top 5 or even top 10 GOAT list is Khabib Nurmagomedov. People have been talking about his legacy and how he actually didn't fight any competition until he got to championship level. And now with the rising of Islam Makhachev, people are actually saying that Islam Makhachev already surpassed Khabib on GOAT status. And today I want to talk about how that's an argument and why people think that. Actually, I think the better way to better understand why people think that Islam Makhachev surpassed Khabib in GOAT status on the GOAT list is asking the question why Khabib is considered one of the GOATs. Khabib is not considered one of the GOATs for the same reason as the other top 5 GOATs like Demetrius Johnson, George St. Pierre, or even John Jones. Those guys, they are considered the GOATs because of their extensive accomplishments, like having more than 10 title defenses, and some of those guys being double champions like John Jones and GSP on the divisions above. So it's kind of undeniable that those guys are like the top 3 of every single serious GOAT tier list, and the reason why is their legacy, pretty much. But Khabib Nurmagomedov doesn't have a legacy. He is the greatest lightweight champion of all time, but that does not make you the greatest of the sport. Being the greatest of your division doesn't make you the greatest of the sport. But why? Why people think that Khabib is the greatest if he doesn't have the same legacy as the other guys? It's simple. Domination.
You can look at me. Really? You can, yes. It's hard.
The actual first guy in the UFC who never lost, and on top of that, he actually never lost a round. He won all of his bouts by unanimous decision every single time, and he never bled. He never had a cut. He never had a serious bruise on his head. The guy literally went to the fight for like 3 rounds, submitted the guys, or got to a decision. That alone made him the GOAT for a lot of people because he never lost a round. He never got beat up. He never had bruises. He never had cuts. He never got knocked down. So for that reason alone, people put him up there on the GOAT list. But we gotta analyze this more rationally, because the thing is, Khabib Nurmagomedov, when we compare him to a guy like Islam Makhachev who fought in the same exact division, we gotta take into consideration some factors. Why Khabib was so dominant? The fact is that Khabib actually, when he actually got to the title picture, where he actually started fighting like actual contenders like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and Conor McGregor, when he was already the champion. Because let's be honest, winning the belt by fighting against Ali Akinta is not the greatest accomplishment, okay? When he actually got into the high level competition, he never in his life, even when he was going up, he never fought like a wrestler. He never fought like a real wrestler specialist, or a grappling specialist, someone who would actually give him troubles on the ground. He never ever had this type of worry of like someone, if I take him down, he can get me on a nasty submission, or I can get inverted. Even though we know that like Khabib probably has the best wrestling in the that we ever saw in the UFC, not the most refined wrestling to take someone down, but in terms of actually positioning and transitions and actually holding someone in the ground, he probably has the best style we've ever seen. But he never actually had the threat of someone actually giving him troubles on the ground. Islam Makhachev, on the other hand, even before he had the title, he actually fought the likes of Arman Tsarukyan when he was an up-and-comer. The guy who actually has insane wrestling abilities, even though he almost got finished 3 times by Charles Oliveira, which is one of the guys who I'm gonna mention later. He has insane wrestling skills. I would say not on par with Islam, but really close with Islam, to a level that he actually took him down, tried to hold him down sometimes, and actually reversed some positions. So the guy actually proposed a type of resistance against another wrestler on Islam Makhachev. Khabib never had this. He never had a guy who actually tried to out-wrestle him or reverse positions with the wrestling knowledge that he had. He never had a guy who actually tried to submit him actively when he was on bottom, he had Khabib on guard, on half guard, on BJJ positions basically. So his whole legacy of dominance was built on top of strike. It's like is basically the same as Pereira right now. He's dominating everyone in the light heavyweight division, but the guy's only fighting strikers. Like, you wanting or not, for me his most impressive win was against Jan Blachowicz, which was a very close decision, but he actually fought someone who mixed in the grappling, and he actually did not get finished. He actually survived all the submission attempts, and he kept the fight on the feet. So for me, that's a way more impressive performance than the performance against right now Khalil Rountree, or even the performance that he had against Jiri Prochazka or Jamal Hill. For me, it's way more impressive when you actually have a performance against someone who's mixing the game and actually giving you troubles and things to think about than just going there comfortable in your game and actually having no resistance on the areas that you're actually like supreme on. In the case of Khabib, he was actually supreme and the best in wrestling, and no one actually ever opposed him on this manner. Imagine if, for example, Khabib actually fought against Charles Oliveira, or he actually fought against a guy like Benil Dariush or Arman Tsarukyan. If he dominated those guys, his GOAT status would actually be non-debatable, because he would have been not dominating guys who were bad stylistically matchups for him. You guys get what I'm saying? Islam Makhachev, he faced those matchups, he faced those tough matchups, and he dominated. He dominated Charles Oliveira. He dominated Volkanovski, which, by the way, for me is still his most impressive win, even though Charles Oliveira is on par for me with Volkanovski, because Volkanovski, at the time that Islam Makhachev fought Volkanovski, was the undefeated monster who was literally dominating every single guy on his division. He went up, it was a battle he had an insane battle with Islam Makhachev during 5 rounds on a very tight decision. The second win, people don't like to consider it. I still consider it, not as much as the first one, obviously, because it was a fat Volkanovski. The guy did not have a training camp. He was not prepared for a guy of Islam Makhachev's caliber, but still, he still won against Volkanovski. But his also his fight against Charles Oliveira is way more impressive than people give him credit. Charles Oliveira was a massive 12-win streak. If I remember it, it was like a massive 12-win streak, and the guy was finishing everybody. He finished Dustin Poirier, he finished Justin Gaethje on the first round, he finished Michael Chandler on the second round, he finished Dustin Poirier on the third round, all submissions. And Islam Makhachev to go there and finish him like he did, outstriking him in the first round, outstriking him in the second round, and then finishing him on the ground, for me was insane to witness this live, in my opinion, actually. So these 2 wins against Charles Oliveira and Volkanovski, for me, do way more in Islam's case than all the 3 dominant wins that Khabib had when he already was the champ. So when we say that the Khabib was the most dominant champion, he did not have to face the guys who would actually give him trouble. He did not face Charles Oliveira. He did not face Arman Tsarukyan. He did not face Benil Dariush, even though we know that like Benil Dariush is on a really bad phase right now. But he did not face those guys who actually know how to grapple and could actually try to submit. Because the thing is, even in the fight against Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev actually had to pull off dominant positions of ground and pound because of the submission of the thread. If you guys remember, he actually almost got a heel hook by Charles Oliveira, and he decided to get up because of the possibility of getting submitted. So the guy is so dangerous on the ground that you cannot actually be comfortable on the positions that you should be comfortable. Khabib never had this problem. He always fought strikers, always grinded them down. And the thing is, about when you're fighting strikers and you're such a massive wrestler, like such an insanely good wrestler, the striker is never gonna strike you with the ability, the real ability that they have. They're gonna pull punches, they're gonna throw from the distance, because they know that they can get a double, like they can get their asses can be put on the ground. And when they go to the ground, it's either a round win for Khabib, because he's gonna hold you down for the rest of the round, or you're gonna tire yourself out trying to get up, which was exactly what happened during the Conor McGregor fight. Every time Conor actually started to strike with Khabib, because we know that Khabib has no striking, like the guy has a jab and an overhand, and that's, to be honest, like that's all he needs, because the guy has such insane wrestling that he only needs to set up his overhand with the threat of the takedown, and that works for him. But when you have a guy with such massive wrestling danger in front of you, wrestling abilities in front of you, you cannot actually strike you, the guy. So he was actually like having easy fight. Obviously he was facing insanely tough competition, but he was like a fight facing nerfed guys, because the guys could never like actually reliably strike with him. Like Justin Gaethje fought the entire fight going backwards because he was afraid of the takedown of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and it's Justin Gaethje, like the guy who always fights going forward. So the case of domination that puts like Khabib on the one of the greats list, for me, is not enough for him to be above Islam Makhachev, because Islam Makhachev is actually facing competition. We cannot say if Khabib would win if he fought against Charles Oliveira. We cannot say if Khabib would win if he fought against Arman Tsarukyan, because first of all, he did not have the strike that Islam had to set up the knockdown and the submission, and he did not have the tools that Islam has to do what he's doing. He only had the wrestling, so we cannot say that he would win. Like, people who say that shit, they're just guessing. Like, you're just guessing to guess your guy up, like, because we cannot say that he will win. We cannot say that he will lose, but we cannot say that he will win. Like, that's an idiotic guess to have. So for me, the wins that Islam had, even though they were like, some of his wins were harsh, like the Dustin Poirier win was really harsh. He had to really work for that one. The Volkanovski first one was really harsh too. He actually had to work a lot for this one. It were like insanely goated wins. Like, those wins did so much for his legacy that those 2 wins alone for me are better than like the whole Khabib cartel, to be honest. Like, for the Volkanovski and Charles wins, they are insane. Even more if you take into consideration that the time those wins happened. He won against Charles Charles when we were talking about like Charles being actually better than Khabib if he actually won against Islam. He would be the new GOAT of the lightweight division if he actually won against Islam. So the guy is beating those legends on their prime time. He's not beating them after they got washed and lost 3 times. No, he's the guy who is actually making them have bad performances later. He's the guy who is washing them. Let's just say it like that. So for me, we already know that he has a better legacy, and for me, his wins, the way he's winning against those guys is more impressive than every single win that Khabib ever had in his life. Because let's be honest, like, it is impressive that you never lost a round and never like got a bruise on your head or some shit like that. But when you analyze how he was doing it, he was literally holding guys against the cage or against the ground and pounding them from safe stances. Like, it's not like he's on fire, like trading punches like Alex Pereira, who by the way did not bleed in any of his light heavyweight matches. Like, the guy goes out of the fights with no bruises, and he's not having these battles, these brawls against those guys. Like, he's not like throwing punches, sleeping and throwing punches again. No, he's like holding guys on the ground. The guys cannot like punch you when they are on the ground, so how the fuck they're gonna harm you? Like, how are you gonna get like bruised if you're holding guys against the cage or against the mat? You know what I'm saying? So it is insanely impressive. Like, no one is doing like he was doing, but it's not as impressive as it sounds. That's what I'm trying to say. It is insanely impressive. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like one of the most insane feats that we ever had. But when you take into consideration that he did this only against strikers that actually did not have a good like takedown defense. The only guy who actually had a good takedown defense was Gaethje, and the Gaethje has zero jiu-jitsu. The guy literally during the Charles Oliveira build-up was admitting that if he got to the ground he would lose the fight because he has no jiu-jitsu. So how we're gonna say that's insanely impressive? He's not doing this against like submission artists like Oliveira. He's doing this against guys who cannot like grapple to save their life. Okay, even Islam Makhachev was making fun of those guys.
Dustin Poirier is a black belt. But he is. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, bro. Please, brother. What do you mean, please?
So what he did when he catch his arm, he go to the what is this, brother? Black belt? Who give him, brother? We have to check that, man.